Today we're going to see the Active Directory and basics of fundamentals of Active Directory and domain controllers. Okay, so let's move forward. So if you say what is a Active Directory, okay, it's a centralized database that contains two things. One is user account information and other one is security information. You can say it like that. It's a database, centralized database that will contain the user account information like your name and address, email, your every data like your user account ID, the groups you're added in, the access you have, the policies which are applied to it, everything. Okay, and second thing is the security information. Yeah, policy and all also include a security aspect also, so that is also included. And let's say that what will happen if we are not using Active Directory or any domain centric environment. If you are a small organization like a 10, 15 or 20 people and you are just using a workstation environment instead of a domain environment. Okay, so let's say if you grow and you are going like 100 workstation or 100 users, maybe like that. So what will happen if you are not using? So let's see, we have a simple here. We have a simple workstation, and you have only one user. Then you have created a account on that workstation, and you provide your username and password, and then you are able to log in and perform any task you want on that system. If you are admin, then admin privileges. Otherwise, you can do whatever task or whatever access you have on that system. Okay. Then imagine if you are having five or maybe 10 or 15 workstations and you have connected them and there is a workstation environment in your organization. Okay, and some file shares are created on one or two workstation and some printers are connected to one or two workstation, and those are shared. And as a shared resource you want to use them from your workstation to any location, like any, not any, like in your organization. If there is two floors and you are on second floor and there is a third floor, so you want to use that printer which is on third floor, and that printer is connected to another workstation. Okay, so you need to authenticate to that workstation for using that printer. Let's see, this is our work group. So you need to authenticate to the third workstation here to use the printer if you are connected through workstation. Okay, so in this situation, that is a nightmare. You have to log into every workstation you want to use. If you want to use, like if you want to use a printer connected to the third workstation, you want to use a file share on the third workstation, then you have to log into that. Okay, you have to provide your username, password and login, but that can't be possible if your ID is not created on that workstation, right? We have to, or the admins have to create your ID on that workstation manually. Now imagine if you have a requirement, some kind of requirement on like 50 workstation or 50 systems, then you want to log into that 50 system, then we have to create multiple user accounts or multiple same user accounts on multiple computers, you can say. Then you have to remember and manage those username and passwords to log into them, right? That is a nightmare. If a user one is here and trying to log into the first workstation, and if same user one and is trying to log into the second workstation, then we have to provide the same username and password, and that is a nightmare. But now if we have a domain controller, or if we have a domain, then what will happen? Let's see. Okay, let's see, now we have an environment in which we have three workstation or three systems, and those three workstation are connected to a server which we call a domain controller, and it have the domain controller role installed in it, and we use it for authentication. Okay, so what will happen now? Then now the user is able to log in. Okay, we have a printer here. Okay, so now the user will have to log into the domain controller once, then that user's work is done. Like not domain controllers, if a user want to log into any workstation, he will have to authenticate to that domain controller once. Okay, that's it. He don't need to authenticate multiple workstations or multiple systems on the organization. He only need to authenticate to the domain controller through one workstation. Like if a user is going to log in, then he will have to log into first workstation here, then this work is done. His user ID and password will go to the domain controller, and the data will be matched. If it is correct, then he will be authenticated, and the domain controller will authenticate the user, and the user will be able to log into the first workstation if you want to. Okay, then if we have to use the printer on the third workstation here, which is connected to the printer, then he don't need to authenticate again. Okay, he can use the printer which is shared on the third workstation here, and it is easy to manage and easy for security purpose and more easy to handle on the domain controller. Okay, the key advantage of Active Directory is it's like more complex system than workgroup, but it takes much more knowledge and experience to set it up and then maintain also. But you need to be familiar with various principles, parts, and everything of the Active Directory for implementing it. Okay, so let's take some look at some parts of the domain controller. Okay, it's domain. The first thing we need to look at is domain. Okay, a domain is a administratively defined collection of network resources that shares a common directory, database, and security policies. Okay, that's pretty long description, but let me tell you with simple words. Okay. Okay, so Active Directory database means it can store the information of user, like say the user information, security, and everything. So here you can see we have this xyz.com domain. I have downloaded this picture from Google, so I have removed that domain name. Okay, so I have renamed it at say you can say renamed it as xyz.com. So you can give it anything. You can create it like devasislinga.com or abcd.com. I mean anything you want. Okay, that is a domain you want to create. So let's learn more about domain controllers. Okay, so yeah, as you know, domain controllers is a database that holds the user information or user security information. Okay, so in a domain we can also have multiple domain controllers. It's not like we only have to have only one domain controllers. No, we can have multiple domain controllers, right? Like here I have created one image where you can see there are multiple servers connected to each other. So let's say those servers are domain controllers. Okay, so but if we have multiple domain controllers, so what is the use of them? Okay, so each of these domain controllers holds a copy of Active Directory database, right? So if any changes or anything need to make any changes needs to be made onto Active Directory, so so each of the domain controllers holds a copy of the Active Directory database, right? So therefore any changes that needs to be made to Active Directory database can be made to any domain controller. So you can make any changes or anything to one of these domain controllers, and that change will be populated to other controllers which it's connected. Okay, that process is called replication. Okay, so it involves copying and changes made to Active Directory database between all of the domain controllers in the domain. Essentially it means if we were use this domain controller to create a new user account, right? Okay, right here populate that user account to other domain controllers. Okay, so no matter what domain controller you are working with, it's going to have exactly the same information as all of the other domain controllers in the domain. Okay, so next we need to look at the organizational units that we call the OU. So this is Active Directory users and computers console. So this folder like structures you are seeing here, the one you just I have highlighted users, right? So that is a OU, like it's a folder that used to subdivide and organize the resources in the domain. Okay, like you can organize your users, your domain accounts, your printers or workstations or any other servers, right? You can segregate them, you can create different OUs, and you can create OUs inside one OU. Okay, so like that you can segregate or maybe arrange them, like you arrange your folders in your computer, you can create. So that we call OU. Let's okay. So here you are seeing a different type of icon. So this is a default OU. Like when you install Active Directory in a domain controller, Active Directory service, some default OU is created, and this is a default OU. Okay. If you are seeing this icon, that means a default OU. Okay, okay, that's it for the lesson. In this lesson, we introduce you to Active Directory, and we first talk about Active Directory domains, and we talked about OU, we talked about replication. So, thank you once again for being here. Like, share, and subscribe. So, if you like the video, I'll see you next time. Thank you.